Hi, welcome to Yoga Any Day. My name is Elizabeth Stewart. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be doing some yoga in alignment with the astrology for the upcoming new moon on November 14th or 15th, depending on your location. This new moon is going to be at 23 degrees of Scorpio. So if you have your natal chart, you can check to see which house 23 degrees of Scorpio falls in, and see if there are any transiting aspects that might help you make this more personal for you. So we finally have Mars direct. We have Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto all direct. So there's a powerful forward motion in this new moon. The new moon is happening, as I said, in Scorpio, which is intense. It can be passionate and intimate, and it also has to do with transformation, coming from the underworld and dealing with your fears. So this may be a good time to face your fears, as they say. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, and there's so much going on with Pluto during this new moon that we're going to do a real deep dive into the Plutonian energy in this yoga series. So here we have the chart, right? As you can see, Pluto is conjunct Jupiter in Capricorn. This is the third time in this year that Pluto and Jupiter have been conjunct. And so it's a culmination of everything that we've been through this year for this third and final conjunction. Pluto and Jupiter conjunct together is extremely intense. Jupiter expands and makes everything bigger, and Pluto has to do with transformation, but specifically has to do with destruction in order to create the space for transformation. So we have a big destruction and transformation happening when Pluto and Jupiter are conjunct. For a yoga pose to embody this energy, we're going to do some bridge. All of these poses that we're going to be doing before we get into the vinyasas today are going to be dealing with the Plutonian energy, and they're going to be pretty intense. So we're going to have to do a little bit of preparation before we actually do each pose. So before we can get into bridge pose, we need to warm up your lower back. To do that, I want you to have both knees bent, both feet flat on the ground. Try to just relax for a second. Just let the breath come and go, releasing tension, feeling the floor holding you up. And we're going to start with some pelvic tilts. So what I mean by that is when you're just relaxed in this position, there's a little space between your lower back and the floor. When you do a pelvic tilt, you rotate the pelvis, scooping through the pelvis, and that makes the lower back go flat into the ground. Try not to push with your legs. Try to use your stomach. So it's your deep internal lower belly muscles in particular that would be great if you could activate them. Basically, we're trying to use the stomach to tilt the pelvis to push the lower back into the ground. So we can do a few of these coordinating with the breath. So on the exhale, you're going to push the lower back down with the belly. And on the inhale, you're going to relax. You don't have to arch, just do nothing. Exhale, tilting, pushing the lower back down with the stomach. Inhale, relax. And a few more. Exhale, tilt, pushing the lower back down. Inhale, relax. Exhale, tilt, pressing down into the ground with the lower back. And relax. And then we're going to do one more pelvic tilt, but we're going to hold it for the inhale and the exhale. So again, try not to push with your legs and feet. Try to just use the stomach to tilt and hold the lower back down into the ground. Maybe you can feel the vertebrae in the lower spine pressing into your mat. Or if not, you can imagine that you're trying to feel that. As long as you're moving in the right direction, you're moving in the right direction. Gently inhaling and exhaling, keeping the lower back down. Again, check in with your legs. Try to not push with your feet for this one. And since there's not so much room for the breath to go into the belly while you're tucking, you can breathe into the chest and the rib cage. Make sure your shoulders are loose, your chest is just falling open, and you can feel the breath going up into the chest. And we're going to release the pelvic tilt. Just let the breath come and go. You can notice maybe the breath is kind of rushing into the belly now. Wherever the inhale wants to go, that's fine. Just watch it. And then we're going to get into our bridge pose. So again, the astrology that we're working with is Pluto conjunct Jupiter. It's a big destruction for transformation. This is a huge, powerful, grounded energy. So when we come into the bridge, I want you to start with the pelvic tilt that we just did. So go ahead and tilt your pelvis and push your lower back down with your belly. But now we're going to add the power of the legs. So you can feel your feet on the ground, pressing down into the mat. Let your legs kick in to engage, and your butt kicks in to engage, and you're scooping up through your spine, kind of leading with the pelvis, lifting the hips up high. If you feel some tension in your lower back, just don't go so high, or try to tuck your pelvis more. If you feel some tension in your knees, adjust the positioning of your feet. Maybe having them a little bit closer towards your butt or farther away will help that. So we're just going to breathe steadily here. The main thing I want you to focus on is pressing the feet into the ground, using the power of your legs and butt. So this is like pushing against the floor, right? The floor is not going anywhere. But we can when we push into it, when we push it away, we move. We move ourselves. Feel that. Feel yourself pushing yourself up by pushing down into the ground. That's a strong opposition. This is how transformation can happen. We can't necessarily transform the world around us, but when we push back, we change ourselves. So this is transformation of the self through strong interaction with the external world. Capricorn has to do with authority. So in some sense, I feel like the floor here represents that grounded Capricorn energy, and we're pushing into it. It's another way of thinking of facing your fears, which is as strong as the floor is, we're not scared to push back because we know that we will be transformed ourselves. And I want you to gently come back down. As the spine comes back down, try to roll back down the way that we came up. So first your first your upper back, then your middle back, then your lower back, and then your pelvis. As you come back down into the floor, feel what's changed. Something is different now. Feel the back muscles relax and spread into the ground. And once you're all the way down, let's pull the knees into your chest, hug them gently with your arms, and just give them a little squeeze in. Allow your knees to have a bit more space between them than hips distance, so it's almost as though the knees are coming towards your shoulders rather than your chest. This helps the lower back open up. Feel the breath going into the lower back and carrying some tension away on the exhale. If you like rocking a little bit, you can sway or rock a little side to side. Try to let your whole spine be loose. So you may have a little kind of bobble in your head from side to side. If you're wiggling your legs or your pelvis, that's attached to your spine, right? Everything's connected. So if you're really nice and loose, then the momentum of that movement will travel all the way up to your head. So coming back to the chart, the next aspect that we're going to deal with has to do again with Pluto. Pluto, along with the other Capricorn planets, Jupiter and Saturn, is sextiling the sun and the moon. Sextile is a positive, flowing energy. It's very supportive. So here we can get in touch with the really best of Capricorn, meaning the easiest to deal with aspects of Capricorn, which is grounded and mature. There's integrity and personal authority. So for a pose to incorporate this energy, we're going to do bow pose. Now, again, this is a pretty challenging pose, especially to start right off the bat with. So first we're going to come into child's pose to just breathe into the lower back and allow it to open up, connecting with your breath, letting your head rest, coming into yourself. So even if we're approaching something challenging, we want to do that with the highest connection with ourself that we can. That's going to keep us safe, right? We have mechanisms of safety ingrained in us. It's just a question of whether we listen to them or not. For me, I find that injuries happen often when we ignore what we know. So the body may say, oh, I don't know about that. And then the brain kind of overrides it. Oh, no, it'll be fine. It's like, no, it wasn't fine because you didn't listen to your body. So if you're going into something challenging, make sure that you ground yourself in listening to yourself and honoring the messages that come up. Your body will keep you safe. Your body knows better than your brain what's safe or not for you to do. So we're going to come forward all the way onto your belly, lying on the mat. And we're going to start with bending one knee and holding your foot with your hand. If you can't reach your foot with your hand, it's okay. Two options. One is to hold the leg of your pants. If you can reach that, that's good enough. Otherwise, you can get a yoga belt or just a regular belt and loop it around your foot and hold that with your hand. So make sure that the shoulder of the arm that's reaching back to your foot is rolled open. Breathe into your chest, breathe into your shoulder. We're going to tuck the pelvis a bit. Try to feel a stretch either in your hip flexor, the front of the hip, or in the quad, the front of your thigh. And then you're going to lift that foot up towards the ceiling and back away from you. As you kick the foot back a little bit, really let that shoulder roll open. For now, your head can be either still resting on the ground, you can have your forehead resting on the ground, or just a little bit lifted up looking at the ground a few inches in front of you. Let's not lift it all the way up yet. So breathe steadily here, feeling the stretch in the front of that hip and the front of that thigh. If you can, as you exhale, feel your stomach tighten and push into the ground. Breathing long and steadily. Again, the energy that we're working with on an astrological level here is Pluto and the other Capricorn planets sextiling the sun and the moon. This is supportive. It's mature. Feel that. You are supporting yourself and you are mature. It takes maturity to do a challenging pose like this. And we'll let that go, coming back down. Let's stretch that leg back down along the ground. Bring your arms back by your sides, turn your head to one side, and just rest for a second. Again, knowing that the best way to carry forward into something challenging is to listen to yourself. Listen to your body and listen to your intuition. Feel the movement of your belly against the ground. Allow that to center your mind. One more nice long breath, letting a lot of tension go on the exhale. And we're going to come over to the other leg, bending that knee, holding that foot with your hand. Roll the shoulder open, stretching open through that side of your chest. Tuck the pelvis. Try to feel the stretch in the hip, the front of the hip, or the quad, the front of the thigh. And we're going to stretch that foot up to the ceiling. And we're going to reach it back away from us. The movement of that leg is going to lift your chest up and back, stretching open through that shoulder again. And for now, we can leave the head with the forehead resting down on the ground or looking a little bit in front of us. Let's not look too far up just yet. Breathing steadily. Connecting again with the stomach. Squeezing through the exhale, pressing into the floor. It's a little bit subtle and maybe tricky to feel, but you can work with it. The stomach is not loose here. It's tight. It's tight and stretching. And it sort of pushes into the floor on the exhale, which helps you lift up. One more nice long breath, exhaling, lifting, and gently coming back down, letting that leg stretch out long on the ground, the arms by your sides. Try turning your head to the other side now and resting it on the ground if that's comfortable for you. And again, just letting go and listening to your body. Feeling that gentle movement of the belly against the ground as you breathe in and out. So stay here, stay nice and calm. We're going to do bow, meaning we're going to hold both feet with our hands. Again, if you can't reach your foot with your hand, you can try holding the leg of your pants. Or you can use the belt again here, looping it around both feet and then holding one side with each hand. Okay, so before we actually get into it, I want to just take one more moment to connect all the way inside, honoring the intuition and the voice of the body that comes up. This is Capricorn in its best. In its best expression, which is, where does our personal authority come from? Where does our integrity come from? It comes from within. It's bigger than our mind. It's our wisdom. And it's very grounded. That's Capricorn, right? It's of the earth. It's solid. It's unmoving. So, connecting in with that inner voice, we're going to come into our big challenging pose, which is bow. Holding each foot with each hand, roll the shoulders open, lift your feet up towards the ceiling. So sometimes in this pose it feels like, well, I can't really lift them up very high. There's a trick. You relax inside the hips. By relaxing in the front of the hip, the butt can work more, and that's going to help kick the feet up. If it feels like there's a lot of tension and you can't get your feet very high, there is a lot of tension. Try to soften the tension to allow the feet to stretch up. And then we're going to kick the feet back. Reach with your feet. Press with your legs. Since you're holding onto your feet with your hands, your chest is going to be carried up and back. It's the strength of the legs that moves you in this pose. You don't really have to lift your chest. You just have to go along for the ride as the legs reach up and press back. Allow your head to come forward, looking in front of you at whatever angle feels most natural as an extension of the curve in the rest of your spine. So we don't want to kink through the back of the neck. We just want to let the neck be an extension of what's already happening in the rest of the spine. Breathe steadily. Again, listening to yourself. There's a big support coming from within. Let's tap into it. Your legs are carrying you in this pose. Allow the strength of your legs to lift you and open you up. One last long breath here, honoring the voice that comes from within, from your body and your wisdom. And gently, gently coming back down. All the way back down, letting go of the feet. And stretching the legs down. The arms can rest. The head turns to one side. And letting everything go. Okay. So coming back to the chart one last time, the last Pluto aspect that we're going to be dealing with is Pluto square Venus. This can be tension and angst, particularly if you're feeling hurt in your heart. Pluto is big and strong here, and Venus is coming up against her with a hard energy. To work with this aspect, we're going to do some shoulder stand or plow, depending on what feels more comfortable for you. This is basically tapping in with the pressure on the heart. Sometimes we have a heavy heart because there's a lot pushing on it. We're going to work with this pose to tap into that energy, and specifically we're going to let some breath into the heart to help alleviate some of that pressure feeling. So lying on your back, let's start again with a little bit of preparation, which is going to be a twist, bringing both legs up into your chest, having your arms open out to the sides, and letting both knees roll to the ground on one side. Breathe into your lower back and open through your chest, reaching open through your shoulders. Feel your chest expand with the inhale and melt open with the exhale. Really long, slow inhale and a long, slow exhale. To come back up, I want you to bring the top leg up first, and then the bottom leg comes up to join it. And then we'll roll both knees over to the ground on the other side. And stretching open through your chest. Breathe into the lower back. And then a long breath into your chest and releasing tension gently through a long exhale. Feel your heart opening on the inhale and softening on the exhale. And again, to come back up, we're going to bring the top leg up first, and then the bottom leg will come join it. Okay, so we're gonna head into shoulder stand. If shoulder stand is tricky for you, then try plow. So I'll show plow first in case that's more comfortable for you. And then from plow, we'll lift up into shoulder stand. If you don't want to come with us up into shoulder stand, just stay in plow. That's totally fine. So there are a couple of different ways to come into it. If it's hard for you to get the hips up and over, you can start by sitting up and then rock back using some momentum to get the butt up and over. You can catch the lower back with your hands or the pelvis with your hands. Another way to come into it would be just lying on your back with your knees bent, the hands down by your pelvis, palms facing down. Give a little pressure into the ground with your arms and your hands and send the hips up and over. Again, you can bend the elbows and support the lower back with your hands if you want, or you can keep the arms down along the ground if that's enough support for you. So just feeling your weight here. Lifting the hips up and over your shoulders, that's a lot of weight, and your legs going over your head, that's a lot of weight too. Breathe gently. Feel the ground underneath your upper back. Let your neck lengthen a little bit. Make sure that your shoulders aren't scrunched up by your ears. You can have the knees bent or straight. That's up to you. I'm pretty flexible about how yoga poses come out, right? For me, it's a lot less about making a particular shape with your body as opposed to listening to your body and finding what shape makes the most sense for you right now. To me, that's wisdom, that's intuition, and that's the humility of learning to listen to your higher self. If you'd like to come up into shoulder stand, try tucking the shoulder blades together underneath you a little bit first, and we'll lift. Let's go with one leg at a time since that's a little easier than both legs. Lifting the foot straight up to the ceiling. Use your stomach. Use your stomach for support and squeeze your butt. So between the butt squeezing and the stomach squeezing, that's your center line. And lifting the other leg up as well. Breathing steadily, and again, just feeling the weight. It's a lot of weight. Your body is all up. All that weight is coming down into your upper back. Breathe slowly. It's hard to breathe here. There's a lot of weight pushing on the diaphragm in the opposite direction that it normally is. It makes it harder to breathe. Feel that pressure. And be very gentle as you breathe in. Inhaling against the pressure, inhaling space into your heart. Exhaling, releasing some sadness, allowing your heart to be soft. Inhaling, feeling the pressure. Exhaling, allowing your heart to be soft. This is Pluto square Venus. There's pressure, there's hardness, and there's love. When you're ready to come back down, if you're in shoulder stand, you can roll back into plow, bringing the feet back over your head. And again, there are always multiple ways to come out of a pose. If you feel comfortable bringing your hands down to the ground by your sides and then using that for some leverage and rolling slowly back down through your spine, that would be great. Use the stomach to help control the weight of your pelvis and your legs so you don't plop down all at once, and make sure your head stays on the ground if you can. If that's not going to happen, if it's not going to be that smooth of a transition, you can let yourself roll out of it, and you can even roll all the way back up to sitting, like how we came into it the first time I demonstrated it. Either way, come on down. And we're going to lie back down on the back. I just want to take a little rest here with the soles of the feet together, the knees falling open, the arms a little bit out to your sides with the palms facing up. Let's roll the head a little bit side to side, pressing the shoulders down away from the ears, just releasing some tension that may have come up from the plow and shoulder stand. Stretching out, rolling out through the neck, and then letting your head rest back in the center and letting everything relax. If it feels a little too funky in your lower back to just rest like this, you can tuck the pelvis, so push your lower back all the way down, or you can stretch the legs down along the ground. Releasing tension. I feel like we could be a little proud of ourselves in this moment because we just did 3 pretty hard poses right off the bat. Feel that sense of joy, happiness with yourself, appreciation. If you feel comfortable staying here, feel free to stay here for a little bit longer. If you'd like to bring the knees into your chest and hug them, you can do that. Or really, honestly, whatever position you feel like hanging out in for a minute, we're going to get ready to plant our seed of intention for this new moon cycle. So I'm just going to talk you through it for a minute, and then we're going to come into a standing forward bend when we plant our seed of intention. So be in whatever position feels most comfortable for you. Again, listen to your body. Your body knows better than me what you want and what you need right now, what would feel so good for you right now. So let's honor that and listen to yourself. So Scorpio is about what we let go of to allow an opening for a new potential or opening that we are going to merge with. This can be a loss, which relates again with the Pluto energy of destruction that makes way for transformation. Scorpio is a water sign, specifically the deep waters of our unconscious or the underworld. Capricorn is earth. So we're working with deep water and earth. The new moon is happening, as I said, at 23 degrees of Scorpio, which is the 3rd decan of Scorpio. That's the final third. And the final third of any sign has to do with mastery. Capricorn is about maturity. So we're dealing with mastery and maturity in deep water and earth. I'm going to bring us in our imaginations to the ocean. And there's so much happening, there's so much intensity happening with this new moon, with all the Pluto energy. I feel like we can picture this giant wave. Okay, the earlier conjunctions of Pluto and Jupiter were aligned with the first wave of the coronavirus and the second wave, or what some people called the peak of the first wave. We're coming into the third of these. So this is like a big, cold, salty, intense wave coming at us. And in our mastery and our wisdom, we need to know how to handle this energy. And I'm going to say that this wave is so big and so cold and so salty and intense that our wisdom and our mastery is telling us to dive deep. That's the Scorpio energy. We're going to dive under this wave. We're going to take the wave by diving down below it. So it's not going to destroy us, right? It's going to help push us to go down. We're going to plant our seed in the earth, under the water, under this big wave. That's how deep we're going, to the bottom of the ocean. After this new moon, the sun is going to move into Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, and the next full moon is going to kick off eclipse season in Gemini, which is an air sign. So this is the bottom of the water and the earth right now. After this, we're going to move into something really different. So let's go all the way. There's another aspect that's happening at this time, which is that Mercury is coming into its third and final opposition with Uranus. This is also another big, intense kind of big deal. Uranus is unique and disruptive, and Mercury, of course, is our minds. So when we plant our seed here, we're going to be letting go of control by hanging our heads. And our bodies, in a standing forward bend, are going to mirror the opposition between Mercury and Uranus. The pelvis is like Uranus. It's that shooting strong energy that comes from below. And the head is Mercury. So we're going to hang our heads down. We're going to bow our heads and allow this strong Uranus energy to move through us. The intention is going to move out of the top of our heads down into the earth. And we might not know exactly what intention we're going to plant. I want us to really go into a sense of letting go of control and allow yourself to be surprised. We're diving down into our subconscious, and we may have some fears down there, which we're going to meet up with. Scorpio is a deep letting go, and specifically we're going to be letting go of a fear and letting go of control. So we're going to start standing up, and to get down into our forward bend, we're going to start by bowing our head. Already bowing your head is a letting go of control. We like to have our head up, we can look around, we've got a lot of sensory equipment in the head to see what's going on, hear what's going on. We're going to let go of that. We don't really know where we're going. Allow the head to pull you down slowly, rolling down through your body. The shoulders fall forward, the chest falls forward. Keep rolling down through your spine. As you roll the lower back forward and down, give a little support with the stomach, pushing into your lower back. And coming all the way over, hanging from the pelvis. If you want to keep your legs straight, that's fine. I also encourage you to feel comfortable bending the knees, because we're going to be down here for maybe a minute. And it could be a little intense, maybe pressure on the lower back if your legs are straight. If you feel comfortable with the legs straight, go for it. But don't hesitate to bend the knees. And you can even rest your chest on your thighs if it gets that low for you. Really let your head hang. Dangle the arms wherever they want to go. If you feel like shifting your weight around on your legs a little bit, side to side from one foot to the other, just grounding yourself and feeling supported in your legs, that's good. And then coming into the center. Allow the energy to fall from the pelvis, through the torso, out through the top of your head. Breathe deeply into the pelvis and let go. Our intention, our seed that we're planting, is to release our control, to face our fears, and to let our fears go. You can feel an opening in the top of your head. Imagine some energy. You can picture a seed if you want, traveling out of your body through the top of your head into the ground. Picture the ocean. Picture the floor of the ocean underneath you. Let the seed travel all the way down into that soft earth. Very long breath. Deep, deep letting go. And we're going to gently come down all the way onto the ground. You can bend the knees into a squat. Reach your hands forward to the ground in front of you and lower your knees down to the ground. Walk your knees a little bit back so you're on the hands and knees with your hands under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. So we're going to do some vinyasas. I'm just going to link 2 poses together, and we'll have a few variations for each of the vinyasas, but we're just going to be flowing between 2 poses. If you can link your breath with the movement, that would be great, because we're getting into the water here, right? So if we can get this sort of juicy, watery, flowing feeling by linking the inhale and exhale with the breath, that's going to help us tap into that Scorpio water energy. So from your hands and knees, the first flow we're going to do is bringing one arm down to the ground so your forearm is flat along the ground and your hand is just behind your other wrist. And you're going to turn and look up towards the ceiling. You're going to press back up and bring that hand back down to the ground, back onto your hands and knees, and we'll do the other side. Bend that elbow, bringing the forearm down to the ground, your hand just behind your other wrist, and turn and look up towards the ceiling. And pressing back up and bringing that hand back to the ground so you're back onto your hands and knees. As you twist and bring the forearm down, you're going to exhale. Inhale, press back up onto your hands and knees. Exhale, the other hand comes down, the forearm comes down, and you turn. Inhale, coming back up. Find your own pace of movement. Exhaling, diving down into the twist. Picture yourself going under the wave. Inhale, rising back up. Exhale, the other side, diving down, reaching into the twist, turning and looking up, and inhaling, coming back up. If you'd like to go a little bit further here, instead of bringing the forearm down to the ground, we can keep twisting all the way down until the whole arm is on the ground, including the shoulder. Scooping down below the wave on an exhale, inhale, rising back up. And the other side, threading the hand all the way through till the shoulder comes down to the ground. And inhaling, coming back up. Exhaling, diving down. Inhaling, rising back up. Nice and fluid. If you'd like a little bit more of a challenge, and you can do this, you can try this from plank. So straightening both of your knees. We're going to bring the forearm down into our twist on an exhale, and inhale, rise back up into plank. Exhale, the other forearm goes down and we twist on the exhale, and inhale, rising back up into plank. And very smoothly, I want you to press all the way back into child's pose. And we'll just take a breath or 2 here. And we're going to keep the flow flowing into our next little vinyasa. From child's pose, you're going to scoop forward along the ground, if you can, all the way onto your belly. And then press through your arms, bringing the arms all the way straight, looking up for upward dog. And then back into child's pose. I want you to exhale as you scoop forward onto your belly, and inhale as you rise up into upward dog. Hold your breath as you come back into child's pose, and exhale as you scoop forward again. If you're having trouble with the scooping forward part, don't worry, it is a bit difficult, Make sure that your elbows stay off of the ground. If your elbows are down, you're going to get stuck. So the elbows have to stay off as you scoop. If you can't do it, instead of coming head first, you can roll down through the spine. So from child's pose, you come sort of more or less onto your hands and knees, and then you roll your pelvis down, your chest down, and then your head. If you're able to do it, lead with your head skimming along the ground, and inhale, rising up into upward dog, holding the breath as you go back into child's pose, and exhaling, diving under the wave. If you'd like a more challenging flow, we can do this from downward dog. Same principle, just downward dog instead of child's pose. Bending the elbows, scooping your head low along the ground as you exhale. Inhale, rising up into upward dog, holding your breath as you move back into downward dog. And again, exhaling, scooping down, all the way skimming along the ground. Inhaling, rising up into upward dog. Try to get that watery feeling. So we don't really need to hold the poses, we're just passing through. Just like water, there aren't really any boundaries here, we just keep moving. And we're going to come back onto the hands and knees and step one foot up. So the last vinyasa we're going to do is a lunge with a scoop. This can be done with your back knee on the ground. Your hands can be on the floor, both of your hands on the inside of your front foot. Or if your hands don't reach the ground, you can have both hands on your front knee. We're going to start with the pelvis back and the front leg either all the way straight or mostly straight. And you're going to scoop your head forward and then lift up through your head, arching, and then sliding back, straightening the front leg again. Same principle with the breath. It's an exhale as you dive down and an inhale as you rise up. Hold your breath as you bring the pelvis back, straightening the front leg, and go again. Exhaling, diving down under the wave. Inhaling, rising back up. And holding the breath as the pelvis comes back and going again. If your balance is a little bit off, hold on to a chair or a wall or a table, whatever you've got around you. If you'd like a more challenging flow, you can do this with the back leg straight instead of bent. It's exactly the same, just keeping that back leg straight the whole time. One more. And we'll switch the legs, bringing the other foot up. Hands can be on the ground on the inside of that front foot or on the front knee. The back knee can stay down on the ground, or the back leg can be all the way straight. Exhaling as you dive down below the wave. Inhaling, rising up with your head and your chest, holding the breath as the pelvis moves back. Exhaling, diving again. We're in the deep water. Allow there to be a real flow here. There's no stopping at each of the poses. You just keep moving. Few more, really fluid with the breath. Let yourself go all the way in each direction. And letting that go. And we're just going to come around to sitting, whatever sitting position is most comfortable for you. Lifting up tall through your spine, reaching up through the crown of your head, letting the shoulders pull down and back away from your ears. Long, fluid breath, calm mind, just sensing where you're at and coming into some stillness. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope that you got into a good flow and that you feel centered, grounded, and empowered by working with these fears. Feel free to reach out to me. My contact is yogaanyday@gmail.com. You can give me feedback, you can ask me questions. I also teach private classes online, one-on-one, and I make personalized videos, so you can email me if you're interested in that. And I'll see you again for the full moon in Gemini. Take care and be well.